Hey guys, first regards, we're here and today we'll be talking about the brand new 500 Worlds reveal for Warhammer 40k on the tabletop, what this means for Space Marine 3, and what this means for the setting at large. So basically, Captain Titus is back. He has been promoted again. There's an entire cinematic trailer for this. I'll put a link to that in the description below if you've not seen it already, though I assume most of you have. And to talk about this with me, I have also brought on Mr. E of Dark Tide fame. How do you feel about Captain Titus basically being pushed to the forefront of all of Warhammer 40k now as like the poster boy of the poster boy Ultramarines? It's a pretty massive deal, especially for like a gaming crossover, because I don't think this has really happened before. So what do you think about that?
I mean, that's my first thought, is just how jealous I am that Space Marine 2 gets this sort of treatment, or Space Marine in general gets this sort of treatment. You know, Dark Tide, I feel like, is like the black sheep. But this is truly like, I mean, revolutionary in terms of how Games Workshop handles their properties. I've felt like for pretty much my entire familiarity with the franchise, it's been very much top down. Games Workshop says to the companies that make their games, this is the lore, and they follow. But this game was so successful that it has rewritten their lore, and now they're like canonizing Titus in a huge way. And then now they're gonna like market tons of material after him in this conquest of the 500 worlds. Like, it's gonna be a huge push.
Yeah, there are 4 books coming out for Titus now, including this whole campaign with the Necron Scourge. So basically what is happening in the lore at the moment is that something happened to Captain Acheran. We can actually like kind of tell in the trailer that Titus is a bit down. Rabute Gilliman is currently on the Indomitus Crusade. He has tasked the Second Company and made Captain Titus here the Warden of Ultramar. A lot of people actually misinterpreted this. He is not actually in charge of retaking all 500 worlds here. Rabute Gilliman wants Titus to basically just be like the gatekeeper or like the warden of the planets they've already conquered. And I assume other chapters and successor chapters will be out at the forefront for that, and his big job here is just like basically being a police force on like the planets they've already conquered. So how do you feel about the state of just Games Workshop in general? Because like you said, 40k has never really had a game take precedence over the tabletop. Tabletop has always been like number one. And now we see that Titus is basically rewriting their tabletop plans. He is at the forefront. He is basically the 40k Master Chief. And it's a pretty huge thing.
He really is, yeah.
I mean, that's really what he is. He's just
that's a great way to
Master
put
Chief.
it. Yeah, so to me, I think what it gives me a lot of hope for 40k properties in general, because I think that they were operating, GW was operating under this pretense that, you know, the tabletop is the centerpiece. It's always going to be the big seller. We need to be making everything else revolve around that and go in concordance with that. You know, all other auxiliary properties are just that, right? They're in orbit around this main tabletop seller. But clearly they have realized, probably profit driven, but like they realize that the narrative and the hype around a game or a media property can be big enough that you can base your tabletop around that. And I think that really bodes well for the future, because I mean, how many people here, sound off in the comments, but how many people here's first introduction to 40k was not in fact seeing it in a gaming shop and, you know, playing with miniatures, but was in fact a piece of media? Like for me, I think we talked about this on a previous one of these episodes, it was Astartes, which wasn't even an official GW thing. So like those sort of pieces of media can be really defining, and it's cool that they're starting to see that yes, video games are art. You know, they are there's something that can spread the word, and that you don't have to you know, fight tooth and nail every step of the way to keep the kind of, you know, if people like a character, make them bigger. And clearly people like Titus, and they changed the lore. They wrote the lore to make him like, you know,
like
take over
he's
the
the Master
captaincy.
Chief of 40k
And
now.
like how crazy a leap would that be? You know, if they had written that in the game, right? That wouldn't have been allowed. If like the ending of Space Marine 2 is like, Captain Acheran dies, and then you know, Gilliman calls in, is like, I need you to do this. No, but if GW says it, that's what's happening. So they're able to like now say, hey, this character is like big and pivotal. We want to make him even bigger. Here we go.
I think that does bode well for other 40k properties in the future. Maybe Games Workshop will be a little more hands off on how they can actually do this, because like we mentioned before, tabletop always took precedence. Having like the models be strict, having the representation in game be absolutely faithful to the tabletop was like a number one priority. Now that might take a back step for some of the other properties they do. And another thing I want to talk about here is that in this box set, we are basically getting a bunch of Necron packs here, because Necrons will be invading the sector that our boy Titus is stuck defending. We have Catan shards
Bad luck
on
there.
yeah, it's a pretty bad luck. But
Of any invasion, it had to be Necrons, seriously.
yeah, of all the problems.
It's a cool enemy to fight, for real. If that's what Space Marine 3 takes place in, I would have to assume, right? Like, it's gonna
We'll
be
see,
somewhere
because
conquesting
what it
heaven.
says here is that Captain Titus takes up arms in 500 Worlds Titus, the next major narrative expansion for Warhammer 40k. It'll be presented as a set of 4 books enclosed in a decorated slipcase, and they're going to have all of these talks of like, it's going to go progressively through a dread incursion where the destroyers basically come in and these Necron forces body a part of Titus's second company, I assume. We even see some like Terminators on the artwork, which like Terminators in Space Marine 3 would be amazing. A lot of people already wanted Necrons in Space Marine 3 regardless, and having them show up in like the intermediate phase between these two games and potentially in the third game more. Well, I think it's pretty obvious at this point they're probably gonna be in the third game, because them having them show up just in like the middle of Titus's major story arc between games is pretty huge. On top of that, Gadriel, which was the sergeant, I believe at the time for Space Marine 2's campaign, he's been promoted to ancient. He is now the standard bearer. Chiron, who is your other companion in the Space Marine 2 campaign, he has been seemingly replaced by the mentor of Titus, Sergeant Matoris, who is also part of this tabletop miniature set. And on top of that, they also have like some astropaths members likely be part of Titus's team in these books we have here, on top of potentially Space Marine 3. So, as far as the implications for overall Warhammer 40k lore, I think this could be the start of a major story arc for the Imperium in general. The Imperium, with the return of now not only Rabute Gilliman, but the Lion, is in a pretty good spot. Well, a pretty good spot comparatively from where it was prior to their return, because without the Primarchs, the chapters were kind of fucked, like in the long term. Like really getting a proper foothold in the galaxy for any Imperium forces would be very difficult. And it really does seem that with the upcoming Henry Cavill show on top of these box sets coming out with like major story arcs, they're trying to like really push a proper narrative compared to where it was previously.
Have they talked about, I actually haven't seen any promo material. Is there any promo material for the Cavill show? Is if they show
I don't believe so, not yet.
in?
They might show that at like later portions of the World Championship.
I wonder if they would make him like Ultramarines, because like Ultramarines are their poster boys. You know, they love putting the Smurfs and everything. So
you know, like, I talked about this.
I have to imagine that they would probably go with something very big that they're trying to sell.
That is true. I mean, that was a good point. Like Henry Cavill being a Space Marine, I have talked about that a little bit before on some streams, that Henry Cavill being a Space Marine, it makes a lot of sense to just have him be Titus at this point, to be honest.
He kind of does. He doesn't look too dissimilar, right? Stick a couple little like bolts on his head, and yeah, he could kind of pass with a little.
I mean, the secret level Titus looks nothing like the actual actor in the game, anyways. So like, it's not as if you have like Titus looking different in media. It's a brand new.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, I don't remember this. This piece of media doesn't quite look the same.
Like, I'm gonna be real. All right,
maybe he had some facial reconstructive surgery.
The miniature looks a little chopped compared to like some of the other proportions of the.
Well,
it looks like it's a great
the process of becoming a Space Marine has some hormones.
It's just say the gene C doesn't take the same in like all renditions of it's just a gene C defect between Secret Level and Space Marine 2. But as far as the Henry Cavill show comes out, I feel like Games Workshop is moving towards like a more nuanced story for 40k, because everybody knows the Imperium sucks, and like 40k is a grim dark scenario. Having a grim dark story 24/7 for like an actual series, I don't know if that would work as well. I think they want some nuanced characters, because for me, the interesting portion of a 40k story comes from like a good character or like someone we can sympathize with working with like an objectively awful scenario or like awful civilization, because the Imperium sucks. Like the Imperium may be the best hope for humanity in 40k. That is mainly because the Imperium killed all other potential
perpetuating
options.
this system, which is not not amazing. But like, I mean, you can kind of see it on Titus's face in the trailer. Like, they don't give him like a super like confident or aggressive face when it's like right before the trailer ends and he's being like told you're being told yeah, your goal is to recapture the 500 worlds or like reconquest the 500 worlds, and he looks kind of like concerned,
I mean,
honestly.
he says
I mean,
he says it straight up that Rabute Gilliman he thinks he's wrong. He thinks Rabute Gilliman is
dude,
incorrect. He is from 30,000 years ago because the Horus Heresy was the last
it's
time
yeah.
that he was active, really.
hmm
And it's
So
one.
what I mean, he just thinks that he's like picked the wrong guy, or this is a fool's errand.
He thinks that Rabute Gilliman is blinded by pride in this case, I believe, that,
They
he's trying
can't
to
let it go.
recapture the golden age of humanity. Because, the God Emperor
Yeah.
of mankind, or like at the time, the Emperor of mankind, he was like, he
peak.
was really
Yeah.
pushing humanity in a better direction, or at least like in the mind of Rabute Gilliman. Rabute Gilliman was one of the few Primarchs that actually thought that after the Great Crusade, after the Emperor had properly established humanity as the dominant force in the galaxy, they would basically be able to retire and there'd be no more fighting, which was like really not on
Right.
the
Yeah,
Emperor's
that's
plan. Like, I don't really think that's
that doesn't seem quite right.
no. So I think our boy Titus here, he either recently saw Captain Acheron die, potentially even Chiron. I think that's part of the reason why he is so melancholy
Grim,
in
yeah.
this coronation. That like he is disillusioned partially with the Imperium, but he knows that he is a Space Marine. Only in death does duty end. He is someone who
Yeah,
is fully loyal to
it's
the
true.
Imperium, regardless of his personal bearings against or like misgivings against them. I think that's pretty true for Space Marines. I think that's a pretty great way to have a Space Marine be nuanced, because there isn't a lot of nuance to some Space Marine. Like some
Yeah.
Black Templars are just like fucking crazy and they just hate Xenos. So like
They're Black Templars. What do you
I'll
want? Yeah.
yeah, Black Templars are just like, all right, that's
But
Crusade.
yeah, Titus is like the 1,000 yard stare though, but it really is like the 1,000 yard stare, like war meme. Like he's just like, oh shit, like here we go. Like as if like this whole campaign wasn't bad enough. Now it's Necrons. Well, I don't even know if he knows at the time of that. Is it like canonized yet when that Necron invasion is occurring? Or is it currently
I
occurring and that's what he's being sent into, or it occurs while he's already in process?
I don't know the exact timeline of this. Surely
Hmm.
it's at both Secret Level and this upcoming book series is going to be taking place after Space Marine 2, obviously. As
Yeah.
far as like the Necron invasion goes, I assume we'll like find out where like when it actually takes place in the game here. But as far as the full like timeline here, all we know is like Titus is at least 200+ years old, and he is being tasked with taking over.
A young man.
Yeah, very young man, very young man. But he's being tasked with taking like conquering 500 worlds on top of maintaining them, or at least all of the Ultramarines and Successor chapters are retaking these worlds at some point in time between
Right.
Space Marine 2 and Space Marine 3. And I imagine like the implications of this book series, like the ending of this book series, will be where we start off in Space Marine.
Yeah, be the
These
setup. Yeah,
characters.
the merchant. That would be a pretty. I mean, that's you weren't too off of what you said about the Master Chief. Like, I mean, that's pretty much exactly how the novels work for Halo, as it ties in what Master Chief is doing between Halo 1, Halo 2.
I think Games Workshop
It's
is really learning that having like your book
Yeah.
series intertwined with your games, intertwined with your tabletop is pretty
Yeah.
massive to your sales numbers. And
Right, because there's people who pick up all of it, and
Oh,
those,
yeah.
those do all of it all the way through.
Now, as far as the other releases here, we do have like an Emmentar, which is like the new Necron destroyer that was popped out. I assume that's gonna be like the big thing of this whole book series here. If you're unaware, like they're just like super dangerous destroyers, that they're bent
Mhm.
on destroying all life in the galaxy. Even the Silent King is not a big fan of these guys. Silent King being like the current leader of the Necron Empire, or like left of it. They reawakened the Tomb Worlds. And having him run into this is pretty interesting. We do have some new characters as well, like Amelia Minervas. They are highly respected legatus in Ultramar Defense Auxilia, and they also have an astropath that will be serving and Ultramarine chapter here, at least Titus's chapter, or the second company, I should say. And I'm curious how many of these characters will make it all the way to Space Marine 3, but like we said before, I assume this is going to be the start of like kind of a change in Workshop's way of handling in general, because It's a pretty big deal to have brand new characters come out. They're going to be set up for a brand new video game in an official tabletop. That's pretty enormous. I'm curious to see if they do something similar for Darktide in the future. I kind of doubt they will because like I just don't think
I
Darktide's
doubt it. Yeah, I think that like I hate to be that cynical, but I will be that cynical. I think that like the bigger you sell, the more the more
Yeah,
priority they give you, right? Like so, Space Marine 2 blew Darktide out of the water in terms of sales, and it also is just it's attached to a much more popular and central piece of IP that they are obviously going to push. Like, there's no central figures in Darktide that you could like base anything around lore wise. They're not going to make a whole story about I don't know like Brunt or Moro or whatever. Like they could put a book on Darktide. They'll make a book on Darktide.
they can get like a
But
single
they're
book.
not going to make a whole campaign. There's no miniatures coming out for this. Like you
The,
don't
the,
a
the
whole
Titus
line of
miniatures,
them.
like I gotta say, it's one of the best
It's
miniatures
pretty
I've seen
sick.
recently.
Yeah, I was really impressed when they cut to the end. I was like, wait, oh, it's a miniature, and the whole little like steps he's on. Very
Yeah,
impressive.
I can't
Very
think of
impressive.
any CGI trailer given to
Trip.
any other miniature in 40k. I mean, Fulgrim got a brand new one a while back. He's had like bisexual lighting behind him instead, and that's all they did for him. And they get like the purple lights like illuminating him. He didn't get like no CGI trailer. That dude's a fucking Primarch. Heretics don't get jack shit. Point is that
I wonder.
Titus...
No, I was gonna say, I wonder if it was like they were like, well, you got Titus is in the engine for like the in-game cutscenes. Hey, can you just whip this up as promo material? Maybe they had it like easy to access and just put some extra gloss on it for the promo, and that's why they were able to do that. But it seems much more likely to me, as you said, like they want this to be a big thing that everyone takes notice of, because like, I mean, it's got
definitely.
it's like all of the big pieces of all the big players at once: Ultramarines, Titus, like the headliner of your biggest 40k game in recent memory, and the next big thing for the franchise. Yeah, people they want eyes on it, so it makes sense to get a fancy, shiny 3D animation.
Oh, they're also having like a whole new secret level animation for it, even after the last one we
That's
had.
right.
So I assume this might be part of that, or it's going to take place after. It does kind of seem like Sergeant Matoris is replacing Chiron in this situation because Chiron and Captain Acheran being dead. We'll find out what happens next week. That's a pretty massive event. Like losing your entire captain of the second company is pretty fucking intense. I am curious to see what we'll see next week in the other reveals for the championship series. Comments below, let us know what you think of the Captain Titus reveal and what you think of the current state of 40k lore. And Mystery, you have any closing thoughts on that?
No, man, I am. Listen, I'm excited. I like 40k. I'm getting into it, as you guys might be figuring out, and if they want to keep making properties around games that I like, I'm all the more for it, and I'm tuning in with you.
I mean, I am gassed to see tabletop like push. If tabletop pushes sales for Space Marine and then Space Marine pushes sales for tabletop, that's a big W for Warhammer 40k in general.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
all I can pray is that one day we'll have like a Blood Angels guy be major, so he's my favorite guy. But point is, that's all I have for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. Check out Mystery, who's kind enough to come on and record this with me. And as always, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Bye.